Welcome to Puny Pod, where we answer the question, why is everyone singing and dancing about everything? Welcome to Puny Pod, everyone, the Marvel fandom podcast where we rewatch the MCU in release order and we cover Marvel news over on our monthly Bugle episodes. I'm Ryan, and my co-host David, who is probably thinking, what? This is crazy. I'm going to have dinner with the enemy, and she made some really good smelling macaroni. Morning, David. How are we doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty well. I wasn't ready for that accent quite this early, but I'm here for it. I support you. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. Listeners, welcome back to a breakdown episode. I know it's been a little bit since one's been in your ear holes, and this is the first one of the year, so we are super excited to get into Hawkeye this month. Yeah, David, it's been crazy. I'm going to admit some behind the scenes. I definitely watched this in two parts. I watched part of this like in November, December to prepare for us to record in December, and then life kind of got crazy through December and January, and then I watched the last 3 episodes this week.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. We'll talk about it in a second, but it was a little hard for me to kind of get back into as well. You know, some of the shows, like the first episode really catches you, you're energized. You're like, oh yeah, I remember this. And the first one was like, okay, yeah, Roger's the musical. That's cool. Like we're doing it to the good parts, but yeah, we'll get into it. So
That's fair. All right, David. Well, why don't you go ahead and give us your production details?
The Hawkeye miniseries, season 1, and I think it's to say the only season of Hawkeye, made its debut on Disney Plus, starting November 24th, finishing up right before Christmas, December 22nd, 2021, less than 3 weeks after The Eternals came out. They aired 6 episodes. In the timeline, it's 1 year after the events of Endgame. This is Phase 4, 8th installment, 31st installment overall of the MCU, and it is the 5th MCU proper television series. So again, putting aside the Netflix, the ABC, all those, right? Actual runtime of the show, without recaps, logos, and credits, is 4 hours, 2 minutes. So 6 episodes, weekly releases. Financially, it was about $150 million to produce, roughly $25 million per episode, which is kind of consistent with what we've seen with some of the prior episodes. Even though not a lot of CGI, the budget was still relatively high. Rotten Tomatoes, critics 92%, audience 88%, but
pretty loved.
It's pretty like those are really, really high, but not everyone loved it. Berserker Dude, 1-star review from IMDb. Super woke, the rise of another Mary Sue. Want a series about Hawkeye? Well, you ain't getting one. You're getting the Kate Bishop show with a guest appearance from Hawkeye. Bishop is surrounded by every leftist trope: anti-men, pro-LGBTQAI, white guys are portrayed as corrupt, incompetent characters. The tiny women unrealistically toss men 2 times their weight with ease. There's zero suspense in these fights. All the women are perfect and better than men at everything. A joke, one that keeps playing out endlessly.
Bro.
Somebody had some baggage when they wrote that terrible review, but the show was well received, and I think we're both going to say we liked it. Production notes. So September 2018, Marvel was developing several limited series for Disney Plus centered on supporting characters from the MCU who not had their own movies. In July 2019, Hawkeye is announced in Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con, along with other Phase 4 properties: Eternals, Falcon the Winter Soldier, Shang-Chi, WandaVision, Loki, and Blade. Creative, head writer, executive producer John Igla, Madman, was announced as head writer in September 2019. He's also an executive producer, and he is the de facto showrunner. The series drew heavily from writer Matt Fraction and artist David Aha's award-winning 2012 to 15 comic run, and they both receive a special thanks. Fraction actually landed a producer's credit. Rhys Thomas was hired in July 2020 to direct 3 episodes. So kind of, in the midst of the pandemic, and we'll kind of get into a little bit. And he serves as an executive producer, and the filmmaking duo Bert and Bertie were hired to direct the other 3 episodes. We had a series of writers. The cast, we have a couple returning cast members and several new ones. So of the main principal cast, you have Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton / Hawkeye / Ronin. He turned down a second season because Disney offered him half the salary. And this was after like the snowplow accident. He said, "Oh, well, hey, it's like, what do you think? I'm only half the Jeremy Renner because I got ran over," which I thought was kind of funny. Haley Steinfeld makes her debut as Kate Bishop / Hawkeye. Olivia Cook, Tessa Farmiga, and Catherine Newton, who went on to play Cassie Lang in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, were also considered. Haley also stars as Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, the animated ones.
Yep. Vera Farmiga as Eleanor Bishop. She is Tessa Farmiga's sister. Alakwa Cox as Maya Lopez / Echo. This is her acting debut. We will see her again, obviously, in the future. She's Native American and deaf, and just like her character, but unlike the comic character, Cox also happens to be an amputee. And she is the second deaf superhero to appear in the MCU after Makari and the Eternals. Florence Pugh returns as Yelena Belova. She was blocked by Instagram because she posted photos revealing character's return, and so she spoiled the series before it was aired. So we're another one, kind of like the loose lip actors that just can't control themselves. Vincent D'Onofrio was kind of doing the same thing as well, which raised less speculation that he'd be on it. Speaking of which, he appears as Wilson Fisk / Kingpin, and Tony Dalton as Jock Duquesne / the Swordsman, although he does not get the name ascribed to him in the show. So
right.
Those are the basic production details. Ryan, I'm sure that you have some comic details you want to go over.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over the 2 Hawkeyes. If you want to hear about Yelena, so Yelena I did cover back in our Black Widow episode. So if you want to hear more about Yelena's backstory in the comics, go check that episode out. And then some of the other characters, not to spoil too much, you guys have probably seen what movies and such are out there, so I think it's safe to say Echo has her own miniseries that I will be covering her in depth there. And then Kingpin, obviously, I felt would be better covered when we get to Daredevil. So just know, it's not that there are any less main characters, although maybe Kingpin, he only appeared in 3 episodes or whatever, or 2 episodes. So I did choose only to cover the 2 Hawkeyes here. So first, starting with Clint Barton, introduced Tales of Suspense number 57, September of 1964. Stan Lee on the writing credit, Don Heck on the artist credit. To start with his origins, Clint Barton grew up in a traveling circus where he was trained as a master archer after becoming an orphan. He originally stumbled into crime due to some misunderstandings with Iron Man, but quickly redeemed himself and joined the Avengers. Later stories have leaned harder into kind of the found family circus dynamic and his insecurity and Clint's insecurity that kind of hides behind his bravado. Of course, as a lot of things have happened in the MC or in the Marvel comics where we kind of start developing these deeper stories for folks, and we go back and rewrite their origins a little bit with that kind of thing. Some notable arcs for Clint. He has spent most of his time either as an Avenger. He's been a leader of the Avengers, particularly the West Coast Avengers. I know for me, that's kind of when I think of his time with the Avengers, it's usually as the leader of the West Coast Avengers. And often he is just a complete mess. The big modern defining run is actually the one that heavily inspired this series. So Fraction's run of the Hawkeye series, which actually I read, I own a good portion of that run. It focuses a lot, just like this TV series, right, on street level crime, bad decisions, emotional damage, and of course pizza dogs. Hawkeye isn't
Gotta have a pizza dog.
gotta have a pizza dog. Hawkeye is not the god tier hero. You know, he's the regular guy keeping it together who's really accurate with a bow and arrow. He was killed during Avengers Disassembled in 2004 when he sacrificed himself during the whole Scarlet Witch chaos in Avengers Disassembled. He stayed dead through until House of M, where he was brought back in New Avengers thanks to Wanda's reality warping. These days, Clint mostly floats between low-level hero work and occasional Avengers duty, trying and usually failing to get his life stable while mentoring the younger heroes.
Has there only been one Principal Hawkeye? You know, we have some characters who take up the mantle of different superheroes, but it's been just principally Clint Barton, right?
And Kate Bishop.
And Kate Bishop, yes. But those two. Okay.
Yeah. There's been multiple Ronins. In fact, I think all quote unquote 3-ish main characters, so Maya, Kate, and Clint, have all been Ronin at some time or another in the comics. So that mantle has definitely moved around. And I know Yelena was also Ronin at one point, I think. But yeah. Moving over to Kate. Introduced Young Avengers #1, April of 2005. Written by Alan Heinberg. Written by Jim Chung. Kate Bishop became a hero after surviving a violent attack that pushed her to train relentlessly in archery and the martial arts. She's a rich kid in the comics, just like she is in the TV shows. She later joined and helped form the Young Avengers, which, spoiler alert, she kind of does here too. Over time, Marvel kind of reframed parts of her trauma while focusing more on her confidence, independence, and refusal to be defined by it. So that's kind of where her reworking has come in. Some notable arcs for her. She broke out in New Avengers, really found her voice though in that same Fraction Hawkeye run. That was the two Hawkeyes fighting the tracksuit mafia, very much inspired this show. Since then, she's had solo series in LA where she fully steps out of Clint's shadow and proves that she might actually even be the better Hawkeye. She's never died in the comics, which is kind of interesting. Usually more, somebody in Marvel is every time I'm giving one of these comic breakdowns, I talk about someone who's died, but
there's always a death. It's a relative or it's the character died. Character came back.
So what Kate is up to now? She operates solo, occasional team ups, more emotionally healthy, competent half of the Hawkeye legacy. So she's a full-fledged Hawkeye in the comics at this point. She runs around doing her thing as well. So yeah, those are the comic breakdowns. And I will note, just a quick note for listeners, a feedback note. Please let me know how you guys like this new feedback, or like this new comic kind of arc. I tried to go a little tighter on it to keep it a little bit closer. So please let us know. Shoot us an email, punypod@earsup-podcast.com, or get on the Ears Up Discord and let us know. All right, David. So that's the comic breakdown. Let's talk a little bit about this show. What was your first viewing of this one like?
I think probably like you, most people, I watched it as it came out, first day, November 2021, theaters are open, but, things are still, still pretty relatively COVID-y, if you will. And But I was definitely looking at this one. I was curious about, the Hawkeye character has never been my favorite comic book character. I was intrigued by okay, like you're saying, this is going to be a city, local crime level kind of TV show. Who's going to be the bad person? How does this relate to like the end game and kind of where we kind of pick up from there? Will we see any references to the blip? Stuff like that. And so, yeah, I was looking forward to it, but it wasn't like high. This is like, oh man, I cannot wait to watch this. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I always loved Hawkeye in the movies. I read the Fraction run, so when it kind of came up that it was going to be based on that, I was really excited. I really love. I love. I don't actually remember the story of that run all that well. I'm going to say that, right? And I meant to go back and reread it before this show, but I didn't quite get that done. And so when it originally was coming around and that was going to be the basis, I was like, oh, cool. Okay. Also weird that like the runs that I've read and I own are now becoming the inspirations for the shows, right? Like that's a little bit odd, but it makes me feel old a little bit. But but no, I was really I like Jeremy Renner's portrayal of Hawkeye, and so I was really excited for that. I was excited for like a mantle passing. This I want to say is the first passed mantle in the MCU.
Cap and Falcon.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Cap Falcon, yeah.
Yep. Falcon.
But but yeah, I, to your point, I think Jeremy Renner actually does a really good job with a character that is not like everyone's favorite Avenger character. And I would say from the very first time we see him in Avengers, and it is like he's under mind control, under the mind stuff for most of it. And afterwards he was just like super great. Like he wanted to be killed off. And his character's really grown quite a bit. He's kind of like found his very kind of nuance. He's a family man. He's also an assassin. He's had like a really kind of complicated history, if you will. He's had a very close friendship with Natasha. And so you get to see more of it. And so in that sense, I don't think we're going to get Budapest, but like it was cool to see like more of him and the family dynamic that you see just a little sliver of in Endgame, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I was excited for this one when it was coming out. Definitely. And like you say, right, we were still kind of content starved, so to speak, because this was November 2021, which means we had a couple of those times where we thought that like restrictions could ease, and there were a couple of, I know that like I remember like some things started filming again in some spots of 2021 and whatever, but we definitely were going through a content drought, and so anything was pretty exciting, but this one for sure. Not to mention, I think it's well established I love holiday content, and this is certainly a Christmas miniseries. So
I don't know if I see it. Just kidding. I will fight you on the Iron Man one. This one is clearly like
he's going home. He's trying to get home for Christmas, which like it's a central plot point there for sure.
Of course.
Yeah. Obviously there were a lot of rumors. Also, I will say, like you mentioned Vincent D'Onofrio, which was like, oh man, are we going to get more street level? And there was a lot of talk about like, is Daredevil coming back around and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot there as far as like Florence Pugh coming back and Vincent D'Onofrio coming back as Tombstone, or not Tombstone, Kingpin. Just a lot of conversation of the interesting tie-ins, right? These are characters that either are lesser known or haven't been used for a while. That it was kind of exciting to get them coming back in.
Yeah, the thing was a little bit, I think, confusing for some fans is the fact that an entire Daredevil, as you mentioned, entire Daredevil series appeared on Netflix, right? And there was questions like, is this canon? Is this part of the MCU? Because it's created by created by the TV division, which is separate from the movie, what is now the movie side. And so it is.
But it references the Battle of New York, like story wise, like not necessarily development wise, but story wise, right? Daredevil very much, it lives in the same universe as the MCU, right? The Battle of New York happened there, and I think it was in Luke Cage, especially in those shows that, you know, Luke Cage is talking about how Harlem was further impacted by the Battle of New York beyond other places or whatever, and how his neighborhood felt disproportionate impacts from that and the cleanup thereafter. And so those are kind of interesting because they're in there with the Spider-Man projects a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like they reference back to the MCU, but the MCU doesn't reference them.
Yeah, that's you took the words out of my mouth. Basically, like I don't think we're going to see we're not going to see flashbacks with Kingpin in the MCU. Like it's just it is a continuation, but it's like this weird kind of cut over, if you will. So
yeah. What were your thoughts going back into it here in November, December, January, February?
The last 3 or 4 months. It's been a long time since I've seen the show, and there are certain things which I vividly remember, and other things which we'll get to in the breakdowns, which I completely forgot. And I was going into it because I'd forgotten it. It was kind of like, oh, I'm kind of watching it again for the first time. And it's 6 episodes. They're not short, but they're not super duper long. And I was hoping to get it done by the holidays. Just didn't happen though. But how about you?
Yeah, I was similar. I was really actually pretty excited for this one because like I do remember liking it, and we'll probably talk a little bit in our after in the like closing remarks, but I was really excited because I remember liking it. Now it's interesting ultimately why I liked it and why I have those fond memories, and we'll get to that. But well,
you're a tracksuit fan, so
yeah. I did actually, fun fact, not because of this show, but I did buy a tracksuit last week.
Did you?
I did. I've been like debating buying a tracksuit for a while, and we were at Costco, and Costco had Adidas tracksuits on sale, and so I was like, I'm gonna get a tracksuit. I'm gonna do it. And now, when I go on my Disney cruise next month, I'm gonna rock it. Make a really great impression on all my concierge coworkers. But
what color is it?
It's black. It doesn't have. I was sad because they don't have the white. It didn't have the white stripes on it. It's just all black.
Okay. I have one with the white stripes on it with all
nice.
black. Yeah.
I thought about buying. I was on Amazon. I was shopping, but they're expensive. They're like $60 for the jacket and $60 for the sweats, and I was like, the ones at Costco were like $20 for each part.
Yeah. Run DMC's classic tracksuit. Classic.
But yeah, so yeah, I was excited to get back into this one. I had hoped we could get it done in the Christmas season because of the setting of the show. I was excited to watch it through the Christmas season. I was really excited that like our rewatch landed it during the Christmas season, because I love watching Christmas stuff. So watching it during Christmas season was perfect. But yeah, I wanted to get back into it. I wanted to re-experience one of the series that I remember loving. So, and it's one I haven't rewatched a lot. I've rewatched it I've rewatched it maybe once.
Same,
because it is Christmassy, and so like I think a couple of years ago or something, I was like, yeah, maybe 22. Maybe it was like the year after it came out. I was like, let's rewatch it for the Christmas season. But
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
And Christmas in New York is awesome. Like,
Oh yeah,
it's great.
yeah, great setting. Well, with that, we are going to go ahead and cut in a quick ad break. Welcome back, listeners. Let's get into our breakdown of the episode. 6 episodes, and we will start with episode 1, Never Meet Your Heroes, directed by Rhys Thomas, written by John Igala. We open in 2012, New York. We see Kate Bishop living in her wealthy parents' penthouse in New York City. She overhears her parents, Eleanor, played by Via Farmiga, and Derek Bishop, played by Brian Darcy James, arguing over finances. As Kate grabs a game to play with her mom, the Battle of New York begins. During the attack, one of the Chitauri targets Kate, but she is saved by Hawkeye. Kate and her mom survive the Chitauri attack, but Derek does not.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 isn't bad.
Better than the blip.
Fair
Kate
point.
decides to take her martial arts training a little more seriously, and also decides to take up archery in order to protect herself and her mother. And then we see, the opening credits plays over a montage of Kate training for various Olympic sports, kind of animated, things like archery, fencing, athletics, and the awards that she wins in each.
Yeah, the movie begins basically right at kind of the same time as Loki, right? Because Loki is captured, gets the Tesseract, disappears, bails out, goes to the TVA. The one thing I would note about the apartment, this is obviously not a real apartment. I am sure there might be apartments in New York like this, but this thing would be worth an obscenely, a godly amount of money. And the fact the parents are arguing over finances, like, hey man, just sell your place. Like that thing's got to be worth like $50 million, but I will digress.
That's fair. Yeah. I will also say there was like moments where I definitely thought her dad was played by Dennis Miller.
So funny.
Yeah.
Amazing goatee as well, I should point out.
Yes. We fast forward to 2024. Kate Bishop is trying to win a bet with her college friends. Can she make the college bell tower ring? She shoots arrows at the bell tower and succeeds to make it ring, but in the process destroys the clock tower. Whoopsie daisies.
Haley Steinfeld, beforehand, she wanted to look somewhat proficient with a bow and arrow, so she spent a bunch of time practicing. And then Jeremy Renner told her, hey man, this is all done with CGI. You're probably not even going to have real arrows. And she was really bummed out about it, which I can imagine.
I will also call out the, somewhat obvious Easter egg, obviously, but the clock tower that she destroys is the Stain clock tower, which named after Obadiah Stane.
Tony!
That's what the bell sounds like when she hits Tony!
Man with a box of scraps. Anyway.
Somebody's going to have to rebuild that bell tower with a box of scraps.
There you go. Hey-o.
So we cut over to NYC. It's Christmas time, and Clint has taken his children, Lila, who is still, unfortunately, I'm sorry, played by Ava Rousseau. Cooper, who's played by Ben Sakamoto, and Nathaniel, who's played by Cade Woodward. And they watch Rogers the Musical. I say unfortunately because the Rousseau daughter is very much we're kind of stuck with it because she did it. We cameoed her early on, and she's not an actor. I'll leave it at that.
I would also point out that none of these people look like each other.
No, not at all.
You could have told me they were classmates and I would have believed it, but relatives. And yeah, she's Lila Rousseau's not a great actress. I will say that. I don't know, being kid actor, it's kind of tough. It's
It is
tough.
tough. It is tough. Yeah. So we see various Avengers, including Hawkeye in his purple suit and Ant-Man, who wasn't
Cu-
even there.
Curious insertion. I mean, I know they talked about Ant-Man appearing early on in the MCU,
Mhm.
but obviously was not there. But
Yeah,
whatever, it's
I
cool.
think it's just meant to be like a clearly this is like capitalism, like cynical capitalism at its greatest, right? They capitalize on the Avengers who everybody knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're singing "Save the City," but
Don't. I just got it out of my brain. I can't.
When Natasha appears, the sound cuts out. It turns out Clint has turned off his hearing aid, so he didn't have to listen.
Bah humbug, man. Like, come on, man. You're musical. What are you doing? On the musical, real quick, as we've talked about before, I've seen Rogers' musical at Disneyland. It was great. It was really, really well done. I would encourage people to watch it. The Broadway vet Adam Pascal appears as the lead. He's the lead New Yorker. He's the one who plays Cap. And the other thing of note, that's the only Marvel Broadway musical to date was Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, which I have seen in person.
Oh,
I was visiting with friends in New York, and I said, "Hey, we got a couple choices for Broadway play. We could either see Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark or Book of Mormon." And we chose.
That's
you
a
chose,
choice.
to quote Indiana Jones, "You chose poorly."
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. For anybody who isn't like in on the Broadway side of things, the Spider-Man musical is like notoriously bad and plagued with like technical issues and just altogether kind of a blight.
Yeah, it lost a lot of money. It was don't get me wrong, it was kind of amazing to see a lot of wire work and so forth. It wasn't great. We had technical issues, but like you're saying, they had to shut it down. Like you could do a whole episode just to talk about the nightmare that thing was. But
yeah. So then we Clint goes to the bathroom after he kind of gets tired of all this. He heads to the bathroom, and there's this awkward encounter where he has a fan who's trying to get him to take a selfie at the urinal. And he sees Thanos was right, kind of written on the like graffiti on the bathroom, which really messes with him.
Yeah, that scene was suggested by Jeremy Renner based on the fact that like this happened to him all the time in real life. I don't know about
that's
the
funny
photo at the urinal thing, but just like people coming up to him at inopportune moments.
Yeah. So they leave the theater, and they're in New York, so they want to enjoy New York at Christmas time. And they head on out. Cut back over to some information about Kate and some scenes with Kate. She's back home. She's talking to her mother as they exit Grand Central Station. They walk past Rogers the Musical billboard, which, talk about overbearing product placement. Rogers the Musical, I think those billboards were in every outdoor scene.
Question for you. Like, are they celebrating like the Battle of New York? Because that was kind of a bummer, man. Like, it's like, it's not quite like 9/11 the musical, but I mean, I don't know. Anyway, you think about it, you're like, oh, the Avengers, this is great. And you're like, oh wow, a lot of people died, and a lot of buildings were destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's like we were victorious, yay, kind of moment. Sort of like Hamilton is a lot that way too, right? Like the Revolutionary War was no walk in the park, right? Like it is celebrating, like it's glazing over a lot of like really crappy stuff that's underneath.
I will say, if you watch the vignette, if you watch the longer version, my favorite line is when they talk about Tony, you have to go handle the nukes, and so
yeah,
Are you aware that the World Council ordered a nuclear strike on New York? Is that common knowledge? Like what? Okay, whatever. That's cool. It's whatever. It's a TV show. It's fine.
They wrote it that way just to that's the World Council's retcon, you know? Tony, we knew Tony would take care of the nukes. It's okay. So Eleanor is upset because she's had to replace the clock tower, which Kate sheepishly replies that it was just a bell tower. Funny little exchange there about clock towers versus bell towers. And
her mom says, the dean told me it had a clock and a bell, and overachiever that you are, you managed to destroy them both.
They're joined by an unexpected surprise, Jack DeCane. They chat for a bit before a charity auction.
Spoiler right now, he's going to win the facial hair rankings when we get to the Super Secret Spoiler show. Like, I'm calling it right now.
At the charity gala, Kate meets Armand Duquesne the third, played by Simon Callow, who accidentally reveals that her mother and his nephew Jack are engaged to be married. Awkward. Kate later sees Armand the third angrily threatening Eleanor in his office. Kate is concerned, so she follows Armand the third to the hotel cellar. There, Armand is joined by Jack, and we see a black market auction of various items, which include the Ronin sword and suit, which were obtained in the wreckage of Avengers compound. So that was, I liked that black market auction. It was really interesting. And this is something that, we touched on in Spider-Man. It's kind of the fallout, all of this fallout from the Avengers stuff typically makes its way into the underbelly of society, if you will.
I would have loved to have seen a deleted scene with all the items that were up for sale for auction.
That's fair. That's fair. Kate puts on the Ronin suit and manages to fight the mafia by herself. Outside, Kate finds a dog attacking a tracksuit mafioso before fleeing into traffic. She saves the dog from being hit. Pretty cool. And the mafia are forced to retreat when the police arrive, but they have the watch.
It's the only time we'll ever hear of the watch for the rest of the show. Chekhov's watch.
So we move back over to some more Barton action. The Bartons return to their hotel room after a long day and see a news report showing Kate in the Ronin suit. We see a quick flashback to his time, to Clint's time as the vigilante. Kate drops off the stray dog. Jolt is the dog's the actor dog's name. Lucky is where we land on Pizza Dog's name. She drops the stray dog off at her apartment and goes to investigate Armand the Third's connection to the bombing. She breaks into his home and finds his dead body on the floor with a single stab wound.
Ouch. Quick comment about Lucky the pizza dog. Originally, the director Rhys Thomas wanted to CGI the entire dog, and yeah, weird.
That would have been a choice.
Yeah, they only eventually CGI his eye, but I guess it's difficult to find one-eyed dog actors.
Dogs.
So
yeah,
or Rhys Thomas just has it removed and be like, "Hey, we're gonna be super real." He did not. It's just CGI. Sorry, kids.
Kate flees when his maid arrives and encounters the tracksuit mafia outside. Kate fends them off for a while before locking herself in a car. Just as the tracksuit mafia breaks in, Clint arrives and takes them all out. Clint is surprised to discover that the person wearing his Ronin suit is a girl, while Kate is shocked to meet her favorite Avenger.
It goes without saying that the fact that, obviously she's connected to Clint in ways that he doesn't know because she saw him basically like save their lives, like fight the battle in New York. He was, from the vantage point of where she was, probably could see him better than the other superheroes. So it doesn't surprise me that there's like a fan out there that's like, yeah, man, you are my favorite Avenger. Like it's not that many, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And one thing we glazed over too, I love the Chinese food scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's nothing remarkable about it other than it's just fun. That's kind of what the Bartons do between the play and then going home is they go and pig out on some lazy Susan Chinese food.
With the little cat with the little pumping fist, which you see.
Yeah.
The scene is actually, we fair point, we did gloss over it, but you do get to see a little snippet of what it was probably like to have been, an Avenger, or having quote unquote saved the world, and then like you're not buying another drink in that town, right?
Yeah, especially with Hawkeye, who is very much just like his comic counterpart. He's just the normal guy trying to make it by, and I think of that. There's a lot of athletes that talk about this, and that's just the world that I've heard the most about. Where they're like heroes of their city, kind of the reluctant heroes, where they're like, man, I just want to pay for the food I bought. and you see that in Hawkeye too, right? You see that in Clint, where he's just like, okay, yep, you got the bill, thanks.
Yeah, but you have to remember also too, like Clint, he's a very, like, by this point in time in the MCU, he's very nuanced. You've got the family part, so you see them, they're all holding hands, they're all amped up for Christmas. He doesn't like being a public persona. Right. Almost like gristles against it. And then he just has just the dark history of all the Ronin stuff, which just makes for this very kind of like not super warm and fuzzy character that you meet, right?
Absolutely.
So episode 2 is called Hide and Seek, directed by Rhys Thomas and written by Elisa Clement. We pick up right after episode 1. So they're back in the alleyway. Clint takes Kate Bishop in his Ronin suit back to her apartment. Clint tells her that the tracksuits are one of the enemies he made while wearing that suit while he was Ronin. And just then the mafia arrive and ambush them with cocktails, Molotov cocktails. I do think it's kind of interesting, and they've trailed her, found her, name on the door, Kate Bishop. And then they somehow know which apartment to throw said cocktails into. The apartment catches on fire. Kate, Clint, and Pizza Dog are forced to evacuate, but they leave the suit behind to retrieve later. Looks to me like they could have gotten it fairly easily, but hey, it's a plot device. We're gonna come back to it. So they go and pick up some supplies. They break into Kate's aunt's apartment and use it as a safe house while her aunt is on vacation. Clint returns to Kate's apartment, disguises himself as a firefighter, enters the smoldering building, but the Ronin suit is gone. So not great. When he leaves, he notices a sticker on the fire truck that said NYC LARPers, and returns to the apartment where he re-cleans, and rebandages Kate's wound. As Kate crashes for the night, Clint does a quick Google search and discovers a social media post of a LARPer wearing the Ronin suit. Very convenient. So the next morning, Clint sends his family to the airport. His daughter Lila expresses concern over her dad's injury, but he promises that he will be home by Christmas. As one who's suffered a number of facial cuts from playing rugby, that thing's going to need stitches. I'm telling you right now, that's going to leave a nasty scar. But
yeah,
we will.
I'll also note real quick, Kate's aunt's name, Moira Brandon, is who is the aunt. This is actually a little bit of a comic call-in. So Moira Brandon is a comic book character, and her estate was actually was purchased by the West Coast Avengers when Hawkeye was leading them and became their headquarters. So it's kind of funny that it's kind of the headquarters here for these Hawkeyes, but also, definitely pulled from some comic inspiration there.
That's cool. Back at the apartment, Kate is watching the news and is alarmed to learn that the NYPD has already begun investigating the Ronins' connection to Armand Duquesne III's death. Clint tries to convince Kate to remain in the apartment to avoid the tracksuits, but she insists on returning to her mom's security firm. She has to go to work, and she believes it's going to be the safest place for her to be. They walk through. This leads to like this fun scene where they're walking through Times Square, and this kid like is pointing and says he's a superhero, and Clint's like, oh, you can just tell he's like, not again. Okay, let's take this photo, and the kid just like pushes past and to go like to hang out with like the performing actors, the people dressed up like Avengers, which is so funny. And then Kate has this funny thing say, hey, look, that one's you. And no, that's the female Hawkeye. No, that's Katniss Everdeen. Let's go. He's like, no, your problem is branding. And so her big thing is like branding, costume, your image, and so forth. So tells her that he, when she says that you have a branding problem, he responds like, I'm not trying to sell toys and clothes, which direct shot at Disney's consumer products organization, and probably why there was no season 2. So before she heads into the office, Clint gets Kate's telephone number, tells her only contact him in an emergency, which she follows those to a T. He says that this is likely the last encounter if he's able to retrieve the Ronin suit and take care of the tracksuits. As they depart, she's like, call you later. And he's like, no, please don't. Question for you. Which Avenger do you think would be the most likely to respond to your text or call? Because it's not going to be Clint.
Ooh. Yeah.
It's not going to be Tony.
Probably Ant-Man.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah, probably Scott. I feel like he would reply to DMs from fans on social media. That feels like his brand.
It's not going to be Bucky.
No. Bucky doesn't know how to text.
I know. He doesn't have any contacts.
Yeah.
I was going to say Sam Wilson. He seems like he's
That's
pretty
fair.
down. Sounds like he's pretty down to earth. So Kate meets with her mother to inform her of her situation, but is uneasy with Jack's presence because she knows of his association, with auction via the criminal underworld. So she wants to talk to her mom without, quote, the interloper, which leads to this. Jack is low-key extremely funny in this
I love
show.
Jack so much.
I forgot how much, like earlier on, he was like, there was something like, Jack hands Kate a rose, and she said, that was in your mouth. And Jack says, so it was. And here he has this very funny like interaction where he's like, no, it makes perfect sense that she would be hostile. She likely feels displaced by me, and she's testing our new dynamic. She both desires my approval, yet wants to set firm boundaries. She feels threatened by me, and you know what? I can understand why. I bought a book about being a stepdad. Okay, money well spent, Jack. So funny. So Central Park, we cut to Clint. He is tracked down the LARPers, and he basically has to sign up, which he just hates. I just want to go in there, man. I just this is gonna take just a couple minutes. Like, nope, these are the rules. And so he fights through a bunch of, fake fights through a bunch of LARPers in order to reach the guy who's wearing the Ronin suit. How much did you enjoy the LARPing scene?
Oh, I loved the LARPing scene, dude. Like, I will say, I did. We always described it as like the cool LARP, and that was like, so I did Humans versus Zombies on call, which is like,
okay,
during the mid to late 2000s, it was kind of a big deal on college campuses, and it was LARP light. There was definitely LARP elements, but it wasn't quite as dressy uppy. But it was, so I knew a lot of LARPers because obviously with an organization like that, a lot of people from like true hardcore, like go into the forest and LARP groups would kind of join the group and hang out. And so, I loved this LARP piece. It was very fun. It was very silly.
It's super silly. It reminds me, I'm reminded this is our second LARPing scene because we saw one in Loki, right? They flash back. It was like Wisconsin, I think. Anyway, I just popped in my mind. He finally, so the man recognizes Clint as Hawkeye, and there's this kind of moment where I don't know if he realizes that it was the Ronin suit, because I think everyone just kept referring to him as the ninja.
Mm-hmm.
And Clint says, "You got two choices. I could take this pretend sword and you pretend to die and I take the suit, or I'm going to real punch you and you're going to real fall down and I'm going to take that suit." So funny. He delivers it so well. So he promises the character, whose name is that we learn later is Grills, who's played by Clayton English, promises to give Clint the suit if Grills has the honor of striking Clint down in a trial by combat. Clint agrees. They have this very kind of dramatic fight. He gets killed. He follows through at his word. Clint stashes the armor in a locker and calls his wife, Laura, who's played by Linda Cardellini. Do you know what other role Linda Cardellini has had in the MCU?
Oh, in the MCU, she voiced one of the AIs, I believe.
She voiced Lila in Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Oh,
I did not know that.
That's right. Yep.
He tells her he won't make it home but he'll be back for another day in order to confront the tracksuit mafia. So NYPD contacts Kate regarding the apartment fire. She's kind of like caught off guard. She thought it was Clint calling. She stutters away, gets off the call, joins her family dinner where she learns that Jack shares her affinity for swordsmanship. And, over a little bonding time, let's do a little fencing. So he breaks out his gear. Just so happens he has fencing gear that's her size as well. And, she basically challenged him in a fencing duel to attempt to convince her mother that Jack is not to be trusted by the fact that he's like playing down his skills and he is pretending not to be that good. And she was a 2-time state champion. And then, at one point in time, she's going to stab him in the face. And like he, instantly parries. And she was like, like this aha moment, like you're a liar. And like, I don't know that means that he killed his uncle, but whatever. When Jack leaves, Kate tells her mom that Jack is hiding something and implies that he was involved in Armand's killing. She refuses to acknowledge it and says the NYPD would handle the matter. So kind of early, you see like just kind of like brushing it away, not trying to consider it, if you will, which I noticed much more on rewatch than the first time around and completely forgot. Jack returns, offers Kate a butterscotch with Armand's monograph on it, which she saw the night of the murder, big dish of it. And she puts 2 and 2 together and thinks like, oh, well, then he clearly killed it. There's a sword. Like, this is pretty obvious. Case over. She walks away. We cut to Clint, who allows the tracksuits to capture him. There's very kind of seeing these 3 trucks, these vans pull up and they grab him and like they act like they actually captured him when he just completely turned himself in, reminding me a little bit of the time we see Natasha when she's been captured and she's being tortured by the Rush people. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, Gims, you know what I mean? So just funny kind of callback. Kate attempts to call Clint and inform a possible lead, but a tracksuit answer said Clint is unavailable. She tracks the location, and Ivan, who is played by Alex Panovich, and other tracksuits are interrogating Clint and asking where Kate Bishop is. And then when all of a sudden she crashes through the glass skylight, he's like, I found their bro. Like, you can have a drinking game for every time they say bro, because it is quite a few. And with both captured, we finally see their boss, who is Maya Lopez.
Cliffhanger right into the next episode. Episode 3, titled Echoes, directed by Bert and Birdie, written by Katie Mathewson and Tanner Bean. Flashback to 2007. We see a young Maya Lopez, played by Darnell Bishaw, who is actually Akila Cox's cousin, who is deaf but in a normal school. She is still able to follow along by reading her teacher's mouth movements. At home, her father, William, played by Zahn McLaren, who, by the way, I love when he shows up in the MCU just because I watched Reservation Dogs, and he's big. His name is Big in Reservation Dogs, and he has a pretty big role in that show. So great to see Zahn McClaren show up. He cannot afford to send her to a deaf school, so he instead tells his daughter to continue learning through observation. In Karate Academy, she uses her observational techniques to mimic and easily overpower larger opponents. Many years later, we see an adult Maya returning from sparring to see Ronin attacking everyone in her warehouse. She hides from the ninja before he escapes. Finding William fatally injured, she embraces him one last time before he dies.
I thought this was so I forgot. This is one of the many senior moments that I had where I forgot something that I'd seen before. Completely forgot this, but I thought when watching it again, really effective, like tidy, short backstory that gives you just enough. Like you said, the dad and daughter dynamic is really good. You have to be able to like live in both worlds, kind of thing. I just thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah. And also it's interesting. So early on, her dad is kind of teaching her that she has to live in both worlds, like dragons who live in both worlds, which really, I mean, you throw yourself back, right? And it's like Shang-Chi just came out, earlier in the year that this came out. And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. That was very like on the minds of Marvel fans at the time, right? And so kind of fun little like way that they draw the universe together by not explicitly referencing each other, but kind of using similar imagery for sure.
Yeah, makes you want to imagine dragons.
In the present day, the Tracksuit Mafia holds Clint and Kate captive in an abandoned store. After a fun scene about Imagine Dragons tickets with Thomas, played by Peter. I'm not going to try and pronounce that last name.
Peter Adamczyk. This is, by the way, one of the. I forgot how funny the Tracksuit Mafia are.
Oh, they're so great. They're like perfect Russian bad guy mob.
It's just so goons. Good. Just I buy Imagine Dragon tickets for my girlfriend. Then we had fights. She said that tickets were gifts, so she wants to bring her sister. And Kate says, I mean, look on the bright side. You don't have to go see Imagine Dragons. He's like, I love Imagine Dragons. It's so dumb.
It's so stupid. And that conversation totally won't come up later.
Nope. That's last year about it.
It's just a throwaway line. Maya attempts to interrogate them about Ronin's return, but Barton and Bishop's failure to understand American Sign Language forces Kazi, played by Fra Free, to step in as an interpreter. Barton tries to tell Maya that Ronin was killed by Black Widow. Maya is not convinced, and also won't give him more cookies. So she turns her attention to Bishop and attacks her, thinking that she killed her father. Kazi intervenes and pulls her away, but as they're talking, Barton uses the opportunity to break his duct tape restraints and run out. Clint eludes the tracksuits, but Maya works over Clint before smashing his hearing aid to bits. Clint is unable to retrieve his bow and quiver, is able to retrieve his bow and quiver, and fires arrows to restrain Maya and free Kate, who overpowers Kazi, and they escape, making their way outside, and they steal a car, but not the 1972 Dodge Charger that they don't want to smash.
Oh, it's a beautiful car.
And drive off with the tracksuits in pursuit. Cue up a big old car chase.
I love the fight scene. We kind of glossed over the action. It's hard to describe, but like you're reminded like, oh, Hawkeye is amazingly skilled. And with his arrows is going to destroy everyone here. Like the way he frees her with the arrow, like the way he stops. It's cool. It's a great scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Super, super great. Clint tells Kate that they are out of normal arrows, so she has to use the remaining trick arrows, which trick arrows are a old school trope of Hawkeye that in the comics, he's always using trick arrows. She uses the Play-Doh arrow, an exploding arrow, and an exploding arrow to stop the tracksuit's pursuit. Kate says there are 4 arrows more dangerous than that one.
Then the exploding one, yeah. We've seen the exploding arrow. We've seen it in he fires it at Loki, and Loki grabs it, and it blows up, right in his face, which is great. We've seen it. Used it on Natasha in Endgame to stop her from trying to jump over the cliff. The USB hacker arrow, which we saw at the helicarrier in the Avengers, and
used
something
great effect here.
So great, you run out of arrows, man. You got to use something. And then the grappling hook arrow, which we obviously saw the Battle of New York, the famous where he's falling.
Yeah, and we saw they also used a few others, right? The plunger arrow, that one always gets me, where she shoots the plunger. What's that for?
Was it a trick that it does nothing?
Yeah.
One thing it reminds me of right here is that the dialogue and the tension between the two. You see them early on. He's very not feeling it at all, and she's kind of plucky, and the dialogue is very kind of quippy, if you will. Obviously, over time they become partners, and the thing settles. But it's funny at this point in time where she's also yelling at him, and he doesn't have a hearing aid, and he cannot hear anything. So the conversation is very funny.
Yeah. So when Maya catches up to Clint on the Manhattan Bridge, Kate reclaims her bow from the opposing vehicle and fires a gas-releasing arrow into it, causing it to crash. They are blocked by traffic. Clint and Kate fire a normal arrow into the air, Kate fires a normal arrow, which then Clint shoots up and hits with a PIM particle arrow, enlarging it, causing it to crash onto the tracksuit's pickup. As the tracksuits approach on foot, the duo leap from the bridge, fire a grappling hook arrow, and swing into the train on the lower deck.
And that's where the plunger arrow comes into play. Now I know why you have it. That's that. I again also forgot that scene. The scene with the shooting the arrow, hitting the arrow with the pin
with the pin
so
particles.
cool. The timing, it's so cool.
Yeah, super, super cool. And the PIM arrow is that's a comic book staple. I think that was on the cover of a comic book, is Ant-Man on one of those or something.
He does. Remember he in Civil War.
He also did that.
He fires the arrow, and it had the flares go in different ways to distract Iron Man, so Ant-Man could get into the suit and start monkeying around. So
yeah. So we're back. Pizza Dog's been locked up all day. We need to give him a walk.
A common theme. They remember, we have a dog now. We've got to go back and take the dog outside.
And I love that because there are so many things, and we talk about this all the time, right? About where's the bathroom break in the Battle of New York? And where is this, that, or the other human thing? But it is very funny when human things like that, very logistical, normal things enter the comic book hero conversation, because it just grounds the show in such a funny way. And I love it. They return to the apartment. Clint receives a call from his son, Nathaniel, with Kate helping father and son to communicate. Nathaniel tells Clint that it'll be okay if he's unable to make it home in time for Christmas. Oh, but Clint promises he'll be there.
Yeah. This is a very kind of touching, very kind of sweet thing that Kate does. And you see Clint maybe for the first time kind of let his guard down and be very kind of thankful. Because until then, all she's done is bring him headaches.
Right. She just dragged him back into the thing he was trying to get out of, basically, until this point. We get a quick scene of the tracksuits moving out of the store because the place has been compromised. Kazi advises Maya to maintain a low profile to not get in trouble with her uncle. Maya reminds him that she is the boss and tells him to look into Barton. Kate and Clint visit a audiologist in Chinatown who fixes the hearing aid before heading to lunch. She suggests a new costume for Clint in order to elevate his branding, and she flips through several like comic accurate. She describes very much like several of Clint's Hawkeye suits from the comics. But he says he doesn't want to wear a flashy costume and insists that he's not a role model. She convinces him otherwise, pointing out that he is sacrificing time with his family to help her and that they are in it together in regards to the tracksuit mafia.
I like the sending it while they're waiting for the audiologist and they're sitting on the stoop and she sends him a text, which is like such a young person thing to do rather than like, you know what I mean? Like just, I'm going to send you a text, even though I'm 5 inches away from you. And it's a good thing they call you Hawkeye, not Hockey. Or the other thing I would point out is that Clint's phone is a Rocket F1. It is $40. And so when you think of like Clint's, although later he has an iPhone, but we will get to it when we get to it.
Taking the dog out for a walk, Barton provides background on the tracksuits and reveals that another person is their real leader. Kate remains suspicious of Jack, so they sneak into Eleanor's penthouse and breach into Bishop's security to obtain information about Jack and the tracksuits. Looking up Kazi, they discover his employment at Sloan Limited, a name familiar to Barton. But when Kate attempts to view the information on Jack, she is locked out of the system. Clint hears someone else enter the suite and goes to investigate, but is caught by Jack, who is wielding Ronan's sword.
So two questions for you. The practical one, which is like, how do they have Kazi's name? I never understood that part. But two, do you think that Eleanor, who we will learn more about later on, set it up so that like anybody who tried to access the Jack files would immediately be locked out? Right? Yeah.
It almost seems like she had to have, right? Like, although if she's looking up her own partner, then she's got to call IT and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Real awkward call.
Super awkward. That ends the episode and we pick up episode 4, Partners. Am I Right? Directed by Burton Birdie. Written by Aaron Cancino and Heather Quinn. We pick up at the exact same moment. Kate and Eleanor arrive. See Jack drops his attack when he realizes it's the famous Avenger Archer. See, I told you you have a branding issue problem. Eleanor was notified that Kate used her account to access Bishop's security. Kate tells her that she and Clint are working together to solve a criminal case. Eleanor walks to the elevator and tells him to drop the case, but he basically says, "I can't drop the case, and I'll keep your daughter safe." She makes a kind of snide comment about Natasha and, just do you see my daughter as a superhero? And like, no matter what, this implying like there's no such thing as like pure safety, if you will. We later find he now has an iPhone, but we will put that aside. Barton texts Laura into Kazi's involvement with Sloan Limited and learns that the company was a money laundering front from the tracksuit mafia with Jack as its CEO. It's not looking good for Jack. They also discuss a mysterious Rolex from the Avenger compound that was stolen by the tracksuit at the beginning of the show. Kate listens as Eleanor and Jack talk about her. She's like basically lying on a couch and they're talking about her like right there. And Eleanor's like completely obsessed with Clint Barton since, well, ever since the attack. Jack says she's awfully composed around her idol. If I ever met Huey Lewis, I'd be a wreck, which just cracks me up. And question for you, who would you be freaked out to meet? Not Huey Lewis, probably.
I mean, there's a lot, right? I would say, if I met Robert Downey Jr., I think I'd be pretty freaked out to meet.
That's a good call. When Jack goes to make some tea because he sees a headache coming on for Eleanor, Kate tries to tell her mother about Jack yet again. But Mom changes the subject to discuss the Bishop holiday party. So Eleanor is just not hearing anything around about Jack, wants, Hawkeye to drop the case. On rewatch, you start to realize why that is. So Kate leaves the penthouse and returns to the safe house that night. She surprises Clint, who is drinking from a mug which says Thanos was right. Which, hey, we all have that crazy aunt. So I guess that makes sense. But it's funny that I didn't notice it until the third time watching it. She's brought pizza and movies for the movie marathon and holiday directions and ugly sweaters. And she's just trying to make the most of it. Now, I will put aside the fact that I thought she didn't have a credit card anymore because I don't know how much she paid for all that stuff. But, whatever. Here we are. Clint tells her that Sloan Limited launders money for the tracksuits and that Jack is the CEO. We then get a fun montage of them decorating. They're blending up some slushy drinks. There's probably some alcohol in those slushy drinks, if we're being honest. They discuss boomerang arrows. He's like, why would you want a boomerang arrow? So it'd come back to you, but you have to dodge it. Anyway. And then how to knock someone unconscious from 20 feet away using a quarter. He does this cool quarter flip and turns off the TV. And then basically he, in a period of time, teaches her how to do it. And anyway, very cool.
That skill will never come back. It's just a fun party trick.
Will never come back. And you know what? She's perfected it after doing it once. Whatever. It's called, and it's famously called a quarter flip. On the Ringer's Midnight Boys podcast, they call it a quarter flip. We just have to call nonsense on certain things. Anyway, so she asks him about his best shot he ever took, and he opens up and he said the best shot I ever took was the one I didn't take. And he opens up about meeting Natasha for the first time, whom he was hired to assassinate. She learns that Clint lost his family in the blip, and his grief led him to become Ronin. So he is opening up for very, very Clint doesn't seem like a therapy person to me. So she is probably the first person that she's even starting to open up to outside of his own family, right? Hell, the Avengers didn't even know he even had a family. They were all shocked, right? So after she goes to bed, he removes his hearing aid and we see real quick flashbacks of his family, his time as Ronin, and Natasha's death. So he's just still haunted by all this stuff, even a year later. Next day, Clint assigns Kate to retrieve our trick arrows. My trick arrows. You mean our trick arrows? Our trick arrows. From the NYC LARPers at a police department facility. Kate finds the LARPers and asks the police officer, Wendy Conrad, a.k.a. better as Elle's Bath of Deepdale, for help.
AKA Bombshell. She's actually a comic book mercenary who kidnapped Hawkeye. Was Bombshell, aka Wendy Conrad.
Oh, okay, nice. Kate says, basically, all we need is some casual run-of-the-mill evidence tampering. Hawkeye's trick arrows at the NYPD facility near the Manhattan Bridge. Officer agrees, so long as Kate, quote, makes it worth our while. We see Clint confronting Kazi, who has Maya's ear. Not literally, but you know what I mean. Clint warns Kazi that Maya's boss doesn't want this attention and that her obsession with Ronin is dangerous. Clint says, this is the final warning. Just get it done. Clint returns to the apartment to find Kate with several LARPers. Probably not what was he expecting at all. She agrees to provide them with materials to make new costumes for them all, plus a couple more for the Archer duo, in exchange for the arrows and information. So he gets the arrows. He receives a text from Laura that the Rolex is in an apartment. And since the watch is tied to the identity of an individual close to Clint, i.e. Laura, he and Kate leave to retrieve it. So you get this fun scene. They're across the street. Clint's got the glasses out, binoculars out. He's studying the other building. He's studying entrance points, exit points. Mm-hmm. Entrance can be slow. Exit's got to be fast. And so while he's doing this, Kate just walks across the apartment, goes in, uses social maneuvering to basically kind of get let into the apartment to help a man carry his groceries up the elevator, and she gets into the apartment. Kate locates the Rolex as well as a notebook, which includes the names of Clint's family. And she's talking to Clint at this point. time. Like when she walked in, she saw these little flashing lights, which has triggered a silent alarm. And it turns out the apartment is owned by Maya. So meanwhile, Clint is being ambushed on the other side. He's saying, I'm fighting Maya. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm fighting Maya. And so this fun thing. And they realize it's a Black Widow. Someone's hired a Black Widow, right? So Kate and Maya escape the apartment via Clint's zip line. And then we get this kind of three-way, or these kind of three teams, three groups, fighting on top of the rooftop. Kate fires a sonic arrow, which separates the three. She then shoots Maya with an arrow, which causes her to retreat. Clint manages to unmask the Widow, revealing it to be Yelena Belova, who was hired to take him out. After Yelena sees her identity has been revealed, she flees. Clint informs Kate that it's no longer safe for her to tag along and sends her back home. So, and there was this cool scene where Widow throws Kate off the rooftop, and it's like this kind of almost reminiscent of Black Widow, of Natasha being thrown over the at Vormir and like sacrificing herself. So, but she didn't die, thankfully.
Move on to episode 5, titled Ronin. Director Rhys Thomas, writer Jenna Noel Frazier. We start with a flashback, which probably does every episode in this
there are a few
start with a flashback.
Not everyone, but it was 2 in a row.
Yeah. So we hear Natasha voiceover telling Yelena to inform the Black Widows around the world that they are free of Dreykov's influence. This is flashback to the Black Widow movie. So if you were not recognizing this, that's where it's from. Yelena and another widow, Sonia, played by Yesami Pangenbaum. Thank you. Ambush Anna, played by Annie Hamilton. They briefly fight before they subdue Anna and spray her with red dust, only to find out she's not under mind control, and they ruined her rug.
That cracked me up so much.
So good. You think I'm held captive here by some rich dude? Yeah. After they discuss Yelena's plan to liberate the widows from Dreykov, she excuses herself to the bathroom. And then we see what has to be one of the coolest depictions to me, and I forgot about this depiction.
I completely forgot about it as well. Completely forgot about it.
Because all what you see, I'm going to try and describe the visual real quick. Basically, you see Yelena start to go into dust, and then she kind of reforms as the room around her kind of turns into dust because it was redecorated, right? It was repainted, and there's new things, and so all the new things replace the old things in the same fashion as we have seen all these characters dust, which I thought was like a really, really cool way to show what the experience of those who blipped was, because it was all in the same moment. And, you know, we experienced a little bit of that in WandaVision with Binary, or not with Binary, but with that
Photon?
character, Photon. Thank you,
Monica Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau. But this was like, I just thought that this really illustrated the feeling from the blip people where they didn't experience those 5 years at all. They, you know, there were all those fan theories about, oh, they're living in the reality stone, or, you know, they're living in the soul stone, or whatever they're doing. Right. But like this really just illustrated as, no, they just cut from one moment, cut to 5 years later, instant moment. And so I really liked that for sure.
Yeah, it was a very cool scene. She goes to splash water, dust appears, and like you said, the walls turn green around to represent the kind of current reality. The light fixtures change. And then she like walks out, and you know, thankfully her friend is still living there.
Right. Yeah, it could have been real awkward. So she finds Anna, who tells her that it is now 2023. Yelena realizes that she has missed 5 years of her life and attempts to find her sister Natasha, unaware that she died on Vormir. Sad. Move forward to present day. Kate returns to her mom's penthouse after Clint calls off their partnership. Eleanor reunites with her daughter and tends to her wounds. They have a touching mother-daughter talk before Kate tells Eleanor about Jack's criminal endeavors and asks her to investigate further. We then go to one of my favorite scenes in the entire show.
This is the best scene.
Kate returns to her apartment where she finds Yelena. Hello. Or hey. Who kindly has made some macaroni and cheese. Kate reluctantly agrees to sit down for a chat. Yelena asks why Kate holds Clint in high esteem. Kate says it's because he saved her life. He saved the world, and Yelena tells her that her sister saved the world. Yelena tells her that Clint is there to save his reputation, not Kate. Yelena tells her that Natasha is dead because of Clint and that she has an assignment to kill Clint. Yelena asks about Clint's whereabouts, but Kate doesn't know. Yelena warns her not to interfere again and leaves, but not before eating hot sauce laden macaroni and cheese.
Which was an improv scene as well. Like there was a couple improv parts in here. One was also around like the fork and the cutlery. Like she only has one fork.
This is not cutlery.
And it was completely improvised. And also because of COVID protocols, they couldn't use the same utensil. And so the props department had to go find another fork, and all they could find was a plastic fork. And so they shoved it in there. But why? Let me ask you this though. And I don't know that I have the answer, but like, why is Yelena so firmly entrenched in the belief that Clint is responsible for Natasha's death? The only thing which makes sense to me would be like he would have had to have retold what happened on Vormir, and that had to be kind of somewhat public knowledge. I otherwise don't get it. You know, there were only two people there. Like, Red Skull was there as well. Like, he's not going to say anything. So I couldn't quite figure it out unless it was just implanted in her head. You know, I don't know.
I think it's one of those things where Yelena only trusts like 3 people in this world at this point. And, you know, one of them died. And so I think even though obviously it wasn't Natasha who told Yelena this, presumably Val would have, because Val is who gave her this mission. We saw that in the cut scene the after credit scene from
Black Widow. Yep.
Black Widow. I think it comes down to like, this is the truth that Natasha wanted me to know. And so like, there's just this unshakable truth from Yelena's point of view about anything that quote unquote Nat had said, right? Like, even though it came through a third party being Val and all that, I think it's like, my sister told me that she is one of very few people that I actually trust in this world, and so I can't shake it. You know?
But how could she have told her? She's dead. Like, she was lit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, not directly told, but like, it seems true based on like it's. Yeah, I think there's like, it's hard to explain, but like, I think because it is about Nat and it is Nat's quote unquote story and it makes Nat look better, that is what she like kind of.
So that makes sense for her.
Internalizes as what makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
So then we get a bunch of cutscenes. Elsewhere, Kazi tends to Maya's wounds. He warns her not to give in to her rage and vows to help her kill Ronan. Meanwhile, Clint visits Grills' residence and drops off Lucky, while Grills offers him to stay in his apartment for Christmas. The next day, Jack is arrested by the NYPD after Eleanor uncovers fraudulent tax records of Sloan Limited. Clint visits a memorial for the Battle of New York in a very touching scene where he kind of like prays to Natasha almost. He says he misses her and apologizes for what he's about to do, namely resume his activity as Ronin. Kate calls Clint repeatedly, but maxes out the voicemail box. On to some Ronin time. As Ivan and Tomas discuss famous tracksuits, everyone from Run DMC to Royal Tannenbaums.
Tony Soprano, forget about it. By the way, with the song they're playing, Christmas Time at Hollis Queens by Run DMC, and I have to say this might be my new official Christmas playlist. There's so many good songs. They've got the Charlie Brown Christmas. They've got
they got the Grinch.
Mr. Grinch. Oh, it's so good.
Ravenscroft version. Yeah, so good. Clint sends a note on via an arrow for Maya, commanding her to revisit the auto shop where she first met Ronin. Clint calls Laura and tells her of the increasingly dire situation for the family to avoid, quote, the big guy from getting involved. Laura tells him to follow his gut, and encourages him to settle matters tonight.
So basically saying, hey, Laura, I'm going to put on the Ronin suit and I'm going to, and she do what you got to do. Right. I like she's also talking. She like goes into German and she's with the kids around. She's kind of talking in code a little bit, trying not to let it on. They're like, it's dad.
Yeah. Clint retrieves his Ronin attire and sword, and we see Maya in the tracksuits at the auto shop. Clint knocks out Kazi, who was positioned with a sniper, and then stealthily ambushes the rest of the tracksuit mafia. Clint and Natasha fight, with Clint overpowering her. Clint and Maya fight. Where did I say Natasha? That's wild.
It's 40 Clint and Maya there, my man.
Fight with Clint overpowering her and holding her at sword point. Clint unmasks himself for Maya and warns her. Clint says with American Sign Language, broken American Sign Language, if you or anyone comes after me or my family, it'll be the last thing you do. You have my word.
Family.
He also tells her that he received a tip years ago from an informant who was under the employment of Maya's boss. And he's very clear about boss when he's signing. But the boss wanted her father dead. Unconvinced, Maya knocks Clint aside and grabs his sword. But before she can do anything, Kate disarms Maya with an arrow. Clint escapes and reunites with Kate, where he learns about Yelena's arrival in New York. Meanwhile, Maya meets Kazi, who is happy to see her but disappointed that Clint got away. She attempts to interrogate him about why he didn't attend a meeting the night of Ronin's assault, but he says he didn't get a call. She is suspicious, but doesn't push the issue and drives off. Clint and Kate hop into a rideshare.
Again, does she have a credit card or not?
Well, what's the name that they say? Because they don't say Kate. They say like
yeah, it was
Lindsay
another name.
or something.
Yeah, it was a different name.
And Kate tells him that she had a conversation with Yelena. As they relax at Grill's apartment, Kate receives a text from Yelena, who we see following Eleanor as she heads into a building. Yelena sends Kate a text saying that Eleanor was the one who hired her, along with an image of her talking to an individual in a white suit that's a rather large individual. Clint immediately recognizes the person he was most worried about, Kingpin. Bum, bum, bum.
Up until this point, when you first watched it, did you think the Kingpin was going to appear? Or
no,
yeah,
no, this was a bombshell, right? I know Vincent D'Onofrio kind of had spoiled a little bit of it through social media and stuff, but it was like, is he going to be a background character or is he going to be like what is he going to be? But yeah, he's, obviously a pretty big part here.
Definitely in the foreground. So technically Eleanor went to Fisk about a problem. He paid Val. Val sent Yelena, right? To kill Clint, right? Okay. So episode 6. So this is Christmas? Question mark. Director Reese Thomas, written by Jonathan Igla and Elisa Clement. So we begin with the Kingpin meeting with Eleanor Bishop, who we learned has been working for him for years in order to repay her husband's debts. We learned that she had Armand III killed and then framed Jack for Sloan Limited on Wilson Fisk's orders. But Kate is home, and Eleanor tells him that she needs to break ties with him and warns him that she has copies of everything. I'm going to go on a limb and say blackmailing Kingpin is probably not a great idea. But
yeah, bad choice.
Bad choice.
Bad choice.
Elena also happens to be there and sends a secret recording of their meeting to Kate. And Kate shares it with Clint, and they realize that Eleanor hired Elena to kill Clint. Super awkward. Kate tries to send Clint home to his family so she can resolve her family member's loan, but he insists on sticking together as partners. She was on the other foot. He sent her home. Now she tried to send him home. They're in it together. So we cut to Maya, who meets with Kingpin and Kazi. And she tells him, like, clear her head. She needs to focus on her job. She's going to stop hunting for Ronan. Kingpin agrees it's good for her to move on, and she asks for some time to, quote, clear her head. Maya leaves, and then we see Wilson Fisk ranting about Ronan and the Avenger that's taken an oversized interest in our operations. Remember, like, when you go back to the Spider-Man with the Vulture, and just the concern about the Avengers, like just wanting to maintain like lower level of awareness, if you will. And he raves about Eleanor Bishop and Maya, who has turned upon him. But Wilson Fisk, pretty cool, chill about it. He's like, the people need to be reminded that the city belongs to me. I'm like, okay. We cut in another scene, which I really enjoyed on rewatch. Is they're going to go make their trick arrows. And this has shades of like little Tony Stark and little Home Alone.
Oh yeah.
All mashed together. And they're making up just a whole bunch of way too dangerous trick arrows. End quote. So we get this cool montage of them manufacturing them and Kate labeling them. So we know which ones they are, like Freeze and Flash Bomb and Ice Creamer. And then Kate tells him she's ready. She has like a long story about like, she showed me that being a hero isn't just for people who can fly or shoot lasers out of their hands. It's for anyone who's brave enough to do what's right, no matter the cost. She's ready. They head out. They head to the Christmas Eve party near Rockefeller Center in order to locate Eleanor, who is also targeted by the Tracksuit Mafia. Also at the party are Clint's first responder allies, who are disguised as waitstaff. And recently released Jack, who is carrying a different sword on him. Like, and you're like, so if you're like really innocent, are you really going to flaunt the sword? Like, seems to me to be kind of reinforcing. Anyway,
weird flex, but okay.
weirdest of flexes. And then we just get a kind of similar to Falcon the Winter Soldier and some other shows, like bunch of cutscenes, right? Yeah. Just boom, 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 boom. Here's what's going on.
It's almost like a fight scene. Like it functions almost like a fight scene, but not all of it is fighting.
Yep, totally. So Eleanor arrives and Kate escorts her to the pantry and away from the tracksuit sidelines. Kate gets her to confess to her crimes after showing Elena's video. I mean, I don't think that would take that much. Like, hey, Mom, is this you? Yes.
Yeah.
Is this Kingpin? Yeah. Okay. Well, nowadays you'd be like, nah, it's AI. It's fake. Everything's generated. Kazi shoots at Clint but misses, and everyone starts running for cover. It gets very chaotic very quickly. Kate tells Eleanor to remain in the pantry as she leaves to fight. Kate encounters Yelena, who's there to have some appetizers and to kill Barton. Clint forces Kazi to retreat by firing a gas arrow into his hideout. Kate then fights with Yelena but can't stop her from jumping out of the building and shooting at Clint. Kate then uses Yelena's zip line to like rush down towards the ground, but can't really slow herself. It just kind of lands with a thud.
Yeah.
And the tracksuits attacker, Jack, arrives and helps to confront the tracksuits, which is kind of like this cool scene where you see like the swordsman in action. That was fun. Kazi arrives and fights Clint, but Clint basically suplexes Kazi and tries to escape the building on the zip line, but that fails and lands in the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree instead. So the LARPers are directed by Kate to guide the civilians safely, but they have to first don their new costumes that they just built, which I thought was just so funny. Like, okay, this is our official moment. We got to put our costumes
Let's
on.
do it. Yep.
Kate uses an acid arrow to fell the Rockefeller Christmas tree and free Clint, and then a horde of tracksuits arrive and attack the archer duo on the ice. But, quote unquote, it is time, and they hold off the tracksuit mafia with a series of trick arrows. Very cool scenes of just like of this fight on the ice. In a very sad moment, one of the tracksuit drives a truck and attempts to run them over, but Kate uses a red pin particle arrow and shrinks them, and it's taken away by an owl. It's very frightening when you think about it. And there was supposed to be a post-credit scene to show what happened to the miniaturized tracksuit mafia, but they never did it. So I'm assuming the owl ate them. After Grills lows Kate's Eleanor outside, Kate rushes to confront her. As Kazi returns to fight, Clint fires an arrow at them, but he catches it. Yelena ambushes Clint on the ice, who tells her that Natasha sacrificed herself for others. In denial, she lashes out at him, but Clint gets her to stand down by performing Natasha's secret whistle. You know, they both realize we're both grieving. Yelena helps Clint up and leaves. Maya confronts Kazi, hoping for him to abandon Kingpin and leave with her. He refuses, and Maya stabs him with the arrow after a brief struggle. You know, obviously turns out that like Kazi was in on the murder of her dad the night before, why weren't you there kind of thing, right? And as Kingpin attacks Eleanor in her car, Kate arrives, shoot Fisk with arrows. Eleanor, which does nothing. Eleanor then rams Fisk into a toy store with a vehicle. Kingpin snaps Kate's trick arrows like twigs, but she activates the arrowheads and causes an explosion, which slows him down.
With a snap of his what's that called?
The quarter flip thing, right?
Yeah, it's the quarter flip, but she uses his
like
sleeve thing.
The
cufflink.
Cufflink, thank you.
Yeah.
We see Kate confronting her mom, who's arrested by authorities. She set up Jack to take the fall when it was really her. We discover that Kingpin has escaped. He's kind of walking. He sees Maya, who, you know, and I should point out, like, he's wearing like a Hawaiian shirt, I think, and a white suit.
Yeah.
He is confronted by Maya, who gives him a hug and say, everything will be fine, Uncle. No, I'm sorry. She shoots him. And then wrapping up, we see Jack chatting with Officer Conrad, who invites him to LARP. Again, very funny moment. You see Clint and Kate sharing a bonding moment just before remembering they got to walk that dog again. Christmas Day, Barton House. Clint, he makes it. He makes it home for Christmas. And he has presents. And he has Kate. And he has Lucky the pizza dog as well. Laura is handed back her shield-issued Rolex. And the Ronin outfit is set ablaze on the grill. And Kate then, you know, see the very, very end, you see Kate struggling to come up with a superhero name for herself. And that is the end of season 1 of Hawkeye.
Yeah. A few things. So one, I will say the elevator scene between Kate and Yelena is maybe the second best scene in this entire show. That one's so good. So good. So annoying.
Yeah, because she's like trying to go down to get to Clint. And and she kept trying to press all the buttons, and she finally does.
Yeah, she just elfs it and
totally, completely, right? That was really good. I enjoyed it. I
will also say I remember at the time feeling like, wow, they wasted Wilson Fisk on this, because like you presume he's dead. You know, those of you who have paid attention to Marvel stuff, you know that like a Daredevil show has come out. Wilson Fisk is a main character of that. I don't think that breaks our spoiler embargo. You know, it was.
We also said at the beginning of the episode as well, so it's out there. But yeah, there was. But I remember at the time, very shocking, like because we didn't know at the time that he'd be showing up in Daredevil. I think we did know that there were some discussions about her having her own show, which is why she had such a prominent role in this one. But I agree. Like if that's how he went out, I'm like, that kind of sucked. But you could see why. Like he basically killed her father, and this is her justice. So
Yeah.
we
And
also
then
had,
last thing I'll mention is Laura's watch. So this is easily missed, and for people who aren't like comic book fans or anything, it I'll even admit for myself, it kind of was like, what's this watch about? Like, why do we care about this watch? So it establishes a few things, and actually, the watch itself has some unspoken Easter eggs on it that are really important. So it is a Shield issued watch, which basically shows that like she was an agent of Shield, right? Like
Mhm.
she wasn't just some civvy that Hawkeye met and married and went off to start a life with. No, she was an agent of Shield. And you will notice on the back of the watch there's the number 19.
Mhm.
In the comic books, Agent 19, Agent of Shield 19, is Barbara Barbie Morse, who is all better known as either Huntress or Mockingbird, which is Hawkeye's wife in the comics. And so this basically establishes, without it being specifically spelled out, we can assume that Linda Cardellini's character has a history as Mockingbird. It kind of
Mhm.
establishes her as like, oh, she was actually an agent of Shield that saw action. She wasn't just the guy sitting there playing Galaga, right? Like she was somebody who saw action, and presumably this ties her backstory to Mockingbird, and we can kind of assume that a lot of those story beats, would then tie up there.
God, a Galaga Shield agent catches the stray in an unrelated episode, and then there's a fun post-credit scene, the 4-minute full-length performance of "Save the City"
Yeah.
from the fictional Rogers the Musical, which I watched right before I got on, and that's when I made the comment like, I just got the song out of my head and like back in there. So
yeah, and you got to see it in person. You got to see Rogers the Musical in person, which I will always be jealous of.
it was pretty fun, man. Like I didn't, they had the whole Hyperion Theater. Like, what are you doing with it? Like, let's do something, right? Like, it was great.
Was
It was
it
a lot.
longer than the 4 minutes? That like, was it more than just what was the post credit scene here?
Oh yeah, yeah. I would
Okay.
say I want. It's been so long. I'm sure I could find versions of it on YouTube. I want to say it was like 12 or 14 minutes altogether, maybe a little
Nice.
longer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into our closing thoughts. A main takeaway: why was this show significant to the MCU? Did it do anything to move the plot forward? What do you think, David?
So it's important for a couple different reasons, not necessarily for the Clint Barton Hawkeye character, but for characters that are introduced in the show. We see more Yelena. We see Maya. We see Wilson Fisk, right? So you even see Swordsman, right? And that bridges and expands upon, like as you've said many times before, this kind of the city level, street level crime. Not everything has to be, saving the world or saving the universe or bringing back half the universe, if you will. And I thought they did a pretty good job of like establishing those characters. I know we've talked about before, like, hey, we're going to get the West Coast Avengers here pretty soon. I don't think we are.
Yeah.
I think they missed the boat. I think it's a little too. I mean, not too late, but like I
agree.
don't think it's going to happen.
I think that like West Coast, our best option for West Coast and Young Avengers, unfortunately, is probably like a argument in Doomsday coming up about who the right Avengers are. But yeah,
You could see something like that, and you still have like you still have some very interesting and compelling younger superhero characters. Miss Marvel and Wiccan, and you know what I mean. Like, so you could still do something. But I don't know if it's going to be what we thought before. It's going to be like new Hawkeye and what is effectively new Black Widow, right? Like I don't, but we'll see. Doomsday might change all that. How about for you? What do you think?
I would agree. I think this did a lot to establish street level Avenger or like street level Marvel threats in the Avengers universe, right? Like Spider-Man did a little bit of street level stuff, and he's been kind of, he especially his first movie was more street level, but he's kind of ancillary to the Avengers, where like this is like an Avenger is doing a street level thing, and Wilson Fisk is so important to the street level. And so even if he had died, right, the power vacuum that would have created would have been could have been a compelling story. Could have been a very compelling story as far as like a street level story. And so I think this was a lot, like this did a lot to establish the street level side of the current MCU. So I think that was important. I will also say, like, even though this is not the first passing of a mantle, right? Like, realistically, like you said, Captain America got passed. This is the first, like, younger generation pass on, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Sam Wilson is much younger than Steve Rogers. That's, but they were more like peers in a lot of ways, right? It was more like a peer retired and passed it on to his peer. Whereas this is specifically a older generation hero passing on the mantle to a younger generation hero, which we needed in the MCU, and we still, in my opinion, need in the MCU more of that. Like that's something that is going to become necessary as we're dealing with live actors, right? And as much as AI is taking over and doing all this stuff, I don't want to see AI Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man forever. So there has to be some version of that, and there has to be kind of this establishment of this person can be done being the hero, and they can pass it on to a younger person who can play it for another 10, 20 years or whatever. We'll leave aside the poor acting or the poor decisions as far as like the age of actors and the way that Hollywood treats particularly women and casts much older women in much younger roles than they should be, but we'll leave that aside for a second.
Yeah.
The characters portrayed, obviously, this is somebody fresh out of college taking on, somebody who's at retirement age, especially taking on their mantle. So I think that was an important thing to establish could happen in this universe.
Yeah, you have to create the next generation of characters we care about, right? We can't. If you want to be cynical, you could look at Doomsday as like this kind of desperate cash grab, kind of like, hey, let's bring back the old hits, if you will. But like Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo, and they're like late 50s. Robert Downey Jr. is 60. Like, yeah, like how much do you want to see a 61-year-old Alan Cumming jumping around in like blue makeup? Like you gotta move on to the next generation. They just haven't, and they haven't done a good job of either identifying or capitalizing on that. So, Shang-Chi, seemingly fantastic. Like he should be the forefront of everything. Haven't seen him, right? Yeah. We knew that Chadwick Boseman was supposed to be like the forefront, and obviously his tragic passing kind of impacted things, and it's just a very kind of sad and awful way. But who's the next like star? Who's the next young star? And I think that's where they're kind of failing. To your point, like, hey, can you just cast age appropriate people like in the role? Like, we'll flip that aside. So, question for you: who was your MVP for this series? And why is it Tomas from the Tracksuit Mafia?
Because he went to Maroon 5 instead of Imagine. No. I don't know. I don't think I've picked Hawkeye yet. So I think the only repeat characters here are Hawkeye and Yelena. I think I picked Yelena in Black Widow, so I'm gonna leave her off for this one. And also, she only showed up for like 3 episodes. She only showed up for the back half. So,
who did we pick? I think I picked Hawkeye in Ultron. I think.
Okay.
hold on, let me look for this one second.
Yeah, let's see if we can find the VIP or our MVPs real quick, because just so listeners know, we try really hard to not, or well, we have an explicit ban on picking the same MVP multiple times throughout the MCU, which is going to get harder as we go here because people keep coming back. But it does force us to look beyond just, the main characters and pick Iron Man every time. So this is, we just have to take a quick look here at our list.
I did not pick Hawkeye. Did you pick Yelena?
I thought I had. Let me go back into our show notes real
riveting
quick.
Podcasting.
Oh, I know. Listeners, thank you for sticking with us through this. I did pick Yelena. So I picked Yelena in Black Widow. I am gonna go with Clint Barton, Hawkeye. I think the nuance that was presented of like this guy who everybody knows and is clearly he's part of the musical, right? He's this big famous guy, but he doesn't want to be. He just wants to go back home to his farm in Iowa, spend Christmas with his family, but the blip happened, right? And even though for some people it didn't, right? For some people those 5 years never happened. What he did as the Ronin during those 5 years still happened and still has consequences. And watching him process through that was really interesting, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, he was gruff. He was funny. He was kind of regretful. You see him like basically, like you said, praying to Natasha. He's still like experiencing like such a high degree of grief, and so you definitely see a more nuanced character and way better than the first Avengers movie, where he's just basically mind control, as we talked about earlier. It's a good call. It's also the show's named after him, so
sure,
kind of seems like that'd be an easy choice, or a not easy choice, but like one of the one of the leading choices, if you will, one of the favorites. I really love Yelena. Can't pick her. She's not in it long enough. That would leave for characters who are in it like even half the time. Maya, she's fine. Like, I thought she was pretty good in Echo, and spoiler alert, probably one of us are going to have to pick her in Echo when we get there.
Yeah.
So we'll not pick her here. Wilson Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio is not in it enough. And so basically it has to be Kate Bishop. It has to be Haley Stanfield. Like there's kind of no other real choice. I thought that, now stepping back, I thought that she came across as so one of the things I think is difficult for a lot of these, and I know people have like stunt doubles and so forth, but kind of the physical action, the physical acting, if you will, and that for some people like it doesn't look great. She looked very smooth and fluid, like so she comes across as believable, which is probably like one of the most important things for a superhero, to come across as like, okay, this person is actually doing the things. She is smart. She is smart and funny and sarcastic. My
one complaint about Kate is the god awful color correction lenses that they put her in. But
oh, really? I didn't notice it. What was it?
Oh, her eyes, like they. So it's comic accurate, but like you could have left this aside. They put Haley Steinfeld in awful blue contacts that like almost were distracting at times, just because they just look awful.
So this is probably, I had 2 comments from the internet about like why they hated this show. Darkness _313 said they put as much effort in this show as they did with the eye color consistency. When she's a kid, blue eyes. When an adult, brown eyes. At first, I thought it was another character.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. But I thought like the you could see like a genuine dynamic. I think once you get around to like the third or fourth episode, at the beginning, it's a little bit stilted. It's, I'm not super fan of like very kind of like super quippy dialogue that's like super like fast paced back and forth, because it just doesn't happen like that. She wasn't like overly plucky. I thought she did a good job, and she's very, sometimes you introduce characters, you're like, okay, they were fine. Don't care if I see them again, but she was good. I liked her.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. Now we move on to our overall rankings and impression. And so for this, we kind of we've been doing, during the multiverse saga, we compare things from the multiverse saga against the rest of the multiverse saga, and then we compare all the Disney Plus series against each other. So we're going to do two rankings. One is multiverse saga overall, one is Disney Plus series versus Disney Plus series. And when we talk about this, because we don't want to spend another 2 hours that we've already spent talking about this movie, talking about where it ranks and what it ranks above and under, instead we break it down into thirds. So we say top third, middle third, bottom third, and it's more of like a vibe, right? Bottom third is generally going to be your not so great stuff. Middle third is like, yeah, it's there, it's enjoyable, it's there, it does the job. Top third tends to be, hey, this is the good stuff, right? This is the stuff that we like to go back to, we like to revisit. And depending on the phase or depending on the subject, sometimes the top of the middle third could even be some of that stuff that you really enjoy, because there's just such a bulk of good stuff sometimes. So with that said, David, give me your ranking for within the multiverse saga first, and then as Disney Plus series compared against Disney Plus series.
This is a tough one, actually, because I think that, like, if I were to compare this to the prior multiverse, it would be bottom third, right? This multiverse this phase that we're in,
like in
1, 2, 3 versus 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I would say it would be in the lower third, but not by much. It's solid. I will probably put it middle third for multiverse and middle third for Disney Plus. Depending on other shows and movies that are going to come in, you could see it kind of bumping up a little bit or bumping down a little bit, but I think it's kind of comfortably middle. How about you?
That's fair. I am going to go into some of my old tendencies, and I'm going to put it in the top third of the multiverse.
I could see it being there as well, because somebody's got to be in the top third, and I'm looking at some of them like, you could sit down.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's I would say sort of similar to what you said, where like I think I'm just on the other end of it, right? Where it's like, if there's 30 things in the multiverse saga, which I don't know that there are, right? I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but if there's 30 things, it's going to rank 9 or 10, where it kind of flickers between top and middle. And then Disney Plus series, I would put it squarely in the middle. Okay. I think that there's some really good stuff on Disney Plus series. And so I would drop it down to squarely in the middle for that.
So is it, and this is a general question, is it your kind of general opinion that on average, when you're looking at stuff which is in this multiverse, that the shows are actually on par better than the movies? Because if you have something in the top of the multiverse, but middle of the TV shows, it makes it sound like you think that the TV shows are actually a little bit better.
I do think that the multiverse content, the shows were the best part of the multiverse content.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and I don't think that's jumping on that hot of a take, but like there are some there's some good movies that will come up on here very soon. Some that I'm afraid to rewatch, but I think that there's some good stuff in the multiverse, and I think it gets a little worse rap than it deserves. But I think overall the shows were the better set of content, in my opinion.
Okay, I would agree with that.
So that does it for our review of Hawkeye. Any other closing thoughts, David, before we get out of here?
No, this is a fun one.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, remember to check out our social medias. If you search for Puny Pod, you will find us across your social media of choice. David and I have also we have launched a new podcast. So if you like listening to us, we are both a part of a brand new podcast on the Ears Up Network. It's called Fantasyland Draft League. I am the host, and I'm on every episode. David's one of my 4 co-hosts who rotates through. And then we have 2 guests, and we fantasy draft things from around the Disney universe. Super duper fun. It is a really good time. I would highly suggest anyone who enjoys this content to go listen to it. Very different than our Marvel breakdowns, much shorter as well. But it is a really good show. We actually just recorded one of the episodes for it this week. David and I got together with the guys from Bantha Milk, and we recorded an episode that you guys will hear in May on that feed. So go listen to that. Also, go check out the Ears Up Discord. I've been trying to post Marvel news as it comes up. Marvel news is kind of funky right now because it's always like, it comes in sprints. It's like for a month they release teasers about Endgame, and then it's nothing. Or, it's kind of in fits and starts right now. So I do try and post that over in the Discord on Ears Up. And the link for that is down in the show notes, so check that out. But other than that, thank y'all for listening. Puny Pod will return with Spider-Man No Way Home.